Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another day of social studies class on Thursday today. Today, what we are going to be doing is kind of going back to history. We've been talking about the Civil War and kind of the major issues that caused the war, review around slavery. But now what we're going to be doing is kind of jumping forward to the end of the war. So now the war is over. And we're going to be looking at kind of like how did the country kind of put itself back together again and figure out how they were going to be one country and really rebuild from this major crisis that was the Civil War. This is an era in US history known as Reconstruction, reconstructing or rebuilding the United States and specifically the South. There's a lot of different opinions on kind of Reconstruction, what happened, why it worked or why it didn't work. But why we're going to focus on Reconstruction specifically is because it connects to some major issues today. Because we currently, of course, are going through a major crisis, which is the coronavirus, which you did your current events lesson on Tuesday on, and hopefully that was refreshing or enjoyable, is that after this crisis, how are we kind of going to rebuild or put society back? Because similar to the Civil War, we're going through a major crisis, and it might not be a war, but like people are dying and having their lives impacted in really severe and mostly negative ways where everyone's impacted in some way or another. People have very strong opinions and perspectives on what's going on and what we should do about it. And after this is all over, we're going to have to kind of rebuild or reconstruct this, the entire country, world, all these major institutions that are affected. And similar to Reconstruction for the Civil War, it's important to think about, well, whose perspective are we listening to? Whose voice is heard when we're deciding, well, who's making these decisions for what things are going to be like after this is all over with? Who's ignored? Who's listened to? And these are the same things that were happening in Reconstruction after the Civil War in the South. So we can take these lessons to inform how we're going to reconstruct society after our own particular crisis. And of course, we're going to take this in bite-sized chunks. That's just where we're going moving forward. But specifically today, we're going to look at different perspectives on the end of the war. Because again, people had very different opinions depending on who you are in society, how you thought about it, how you felt about it. And this is important because just like today, people have different perspectives, and this informs how you feel about things and what you think you should do about them. So our aim for today is historians will be able to, in writing, explain the different perspectives on the meaning of the end of the Civil War. Because even today, depending on who you ask about how did Reconstruction go, what happened with the Civil War, you're going to get different perspectives and opinions. But specifically, we are going to look at two of these groups today and compare some primary source writings about these different perspectives. And today we're going to look at two, but first, just in general, there are some major differences of opinion on Reconstruction. If you imagine that you were someone there alive in the 1860s when this was starting, there were different groups with different opinions. And some broad categories were Northerners. These are just the regular people of the North. You're Joe Schmo living in Philadelphia or New York. You're just a regular person. How do you feel about this as a regular person living in the North? The Southerners are the regular kind of people of the South. How do these people that are just regular, everyday people that happen to live in the South feel about the war being over? Next is a major group, free blacks. These are the people that were slaves, but now they're no longer, and they suddenly have the biggest change, certainly. How are they going to be incorporated into society? How are they going to be treated? What do they want their life to be like, and how do they feel? Major important group. Next is the Army down here, actually. The Army is, of course, going to be occupying or controlling the South, the Union Army specifically, because they just beat them in a war. So they're going to kind of have a major say in what's going on in the North. And the next are Southern racists. Southern racists kind of are, of course, the ones that didn't want to lose the war, well, liked slavery, benefited from it, and want to keep these free blacks down and make sure that they can convince the other Southerners that these people are bad and that we should keep them down just like their slaves even more. Today, though, we're only going to look at some Northerners, Southerners. Only two readings for today. But again, this connects to the world today because looking at these different perspectives can help us to see how different perspectives still exist in the world. And when we start looking in the future about how are we going to rebuild the US, understanding what the different perspectives are, why they think the way they do, and seeing whose voice is heard about how we're going to rebuild is important, because some people want things that you might not want, and some people might want the same thing as you do. And how do we make sure we all work together to create the best possible future for everybody instead of a negative or bad one? So we'll use these lessons of Reconstruction to inform us in the world today. So make sure you go down, do the do now. I'll see you in the next video.